All right, we are here. We're back, and it's the start of a consecutive string of perfect shows. I promise you, this is my Aquarian vow to you from here on out. I felt bad yesterday. Got off to a bad start, but I tell you what, the information was actually good. So even though I had to turn the aircraft carrier around, sounds like let's see what we got here. Audio, lavalier mic. I don't know what to tell you. I got my mic all mic'd up here. Hold on. Let's see. Hold on. Can I get a mulligan? Just a little mulligan. Just a mulligan. How's that? The information was really good yesterday, and I'll tell you why. So we talked about a number of things, including what was going on in the financial market, and that there would be major news in the financial market, and there was two major pieces, one of which I covered yesterday over on 15 Minutes of Flame, and that was the announcing of a sovereign fund. Every day there's something new in Trump world, right? So we have the sovereign fund, which is a kind of a government slush fund that they'll be able to invest in things like the latest and greatest mRNA technology. Can't wait for that. So we talked about the sovereign fund, and also there was a bill that is starting to make its way through I believe somebody in the Senate is drawing up this bill, pass it off, go through committee. It'll get to the House. The House will vote on it anyway. The bill is about a stable coin. Now, a stable coin is different than a CBDC. So they're massaging sort of the language and the digital topography of money. So we talked about that yesterday, and lo and behold, yesterday, both of those things came through, right? So there's a really interesting text that I got yesterday, which was let me see if I can find it. Let's see. Where is it? Here we go. I'm going to read this. Good show on Sunday night. And today, loving the neon light. I'd say for home repairs and not skimping, check out the secondary market. There's a lot going on, and prices have gone up, but they are fairer than going to the big box store. And then the next text was, got enough roofing, just surfaced rust on these. So he showed me some roofing stuff, right, that you can use, and then you can work on the rust to cover a 12 by 12 deck, 16 by 25 foot shop overhang, and a 12 by 10 shed for $300. Right, so that's a really good price. So if you're looking around the secondary market, it seems like there's some good buys, and that's what Mars and Cancer does. Right, Mars and Cancer always wants to economize and find the best deals. Right, so we talked about that yesterday, and the community comes through, sends me a text like, "Hey, man, secondary market's kind of bumping. You can find some good deals," and everybody's looking for a good deal, especially when it comes to either home improvement or just maintenance and repair. Right. So those things were cool. They were cool. Good. I mean, so yeah, we were over the target. How over the target was I about Gaza? Well, if you've been following what I've been saying on 15 Minutes of Flame, sometimes on this channel, I've talked about it on Sunday night. that Trump is playing this role of the new Caesar. Like he has literally seized power. Okay. And I have done my best to demonstrate this through historic examples of when leaders seize power, one of the first things that they do is they start to annex territory. And what have we seen since the 20th of January? The renaming of the Gulf of Mexico, now the Gulf of America, basically seizing control of the border. That's not really annexing. It's just, basically protecting what you already have. But there's this ongoing dialogue about the Panama Canal. Marco Rubio been sent to the Panama Canal. So again, keep in mind, annexation. Greenland, now they're in some kind of discussion about Green with, I believe, Denmark, who theoretically is the steward of Greenland. And yesterday, the kind of mind-blowing news that the United States is going to annex Gaza, which is mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Now, we have known for quite some time that Jared Kushner has been tasked with rebuilding Gaza. Like that is Jared's new project. That is his new real estate development. They're going to create the Riviera of the Middle East. So we're going to get into this more on 15 Minutes of Flame because it is a major, major story. And it has so many ramifications. And it plays into the good Trump and bad Trump. Right? So, well, bad Trump, and I do believe this is bad Trump because he's doing the bidding of his masters. So bad Trump says, we're going to take over Gaza. They're going to turn into Puerto Rico, basically, right? And then they'll eventually give it back to Israel, theoretically, right? And on the other side, good Trump guts USAID, which has always been kind of a money laundering front for the CIA. So he's cutting off the funds for a lot of these special ops and agents that are working through these various CIA fronts. He's cutting the money off for that. So we're watching good Trump kind of plow through the pork and the bureaucracy, right? And then we're seeing bad Trump basically create the Zio wet dream with whatever they're going to do in Gaza. You know, the idea was to set up this channel, right? The Ben Gurion channel, which is an absolutely audacious idea, but basically running a channel from the north, which I believe is like Haifa, all the way through Israel. That is that was the speculative plan. And by doing that, the Israelis would be able to marginalize Egypt and the Suez Canal, which is the major port. Israel gets nothing of the Suez Canal. They're not happy about that, right? So they talked about this Ben Gurion Canal. And then yesterday, Trump said, well, this is going to be the Riviera of the Middle East. So the question is, can you have both? Can you remake Gaza? They already had the Riviera of the Middle East, by the way. You know what it was called? It's called Syria. Syria was the Riviera of the Middle East. Parts of when Lebanon was happening, before they went on a search and destroy mission over a couple of decades with Lebanon, those two countries, Syria and Lebanon, they were the Riviera of the Middle East. So they didn't have to build a Riviera of the Middle East. It was already there, to the point where even the French had a significant stake in both Syria and Lebanon, more in Lebanon than Syria, right? And of course, the French associated with the French Riviera. So this idea that they have to remake the Riviera or the Middle East into the Riviera is kind of ridiculous, because they already had it. It was already there. So again, getting back to the weather from yesterday, clearly the stuff going on now, because Uranus has gone direct now. And all these plans for the future of money are moving forward now. And you need to pay attention to that. You need to pay attention. At some point, this is going to happen. I guarantee you it's going to happen. One day, you are going to wake up and your bank account is going to be locked. This is going to happen to everybody. Okay? And you are going to have access to that bank account, but only after you agree to be a part of the new system. Now, the new system will not be onerous at first, but there will be contractual points by agreeing to the new system that it'll be kind of like an adjustable rate mortgage, right? It sounds good at the beginning, but then 2 years in, all of a sudden they start cranking, on the arm, and then the arm isn't so good anymore. Right now, you're really up against it, and I feel like this is going to happen. Like, there are going to be points and stipulations that are future based, that when you agree to this thing, you're agreeing to what will happen in the future. So in the present, all of a sudden, your dollars are going to be in a state of limbo. There are going to be some people who will accept cash. There are going to be other people who say, sorry, we just don't do this, right? This is the new law of the land. And then you're going to transact on this, right? This is what's going to happen. So if you have money in the bank, you're going to have to play by the rules. You're going to have to accept it, and you will get some form of a digital stable coin. And it will be okay for a while. But when those kickers kick in, those hidden clauses, and they're able to request certain things of you that you've agreed to, right? You're not going to be able to get out of that agreement. And they can be anything from the horrid idea of the social credit score to ultimately being able to seize assets, including personal assets, if you don't meet certain requirements, right? So this is all brewing in the background, right? And they're moving very, very quickly. I don't think that we're going to see a collapse this year. I think everything is being put in place. All the tracks are being laid, right? They're figuring out how they're going to do this, and not just how they're going to do this, but how they establish the U.S. or federal stablecoin as a dominant economic force like the Nixon dollar. This is what they're working on, and so that everybody in the world will have to adapt to whatever digital standard is set by the United States. Okay? So this is on its way. You can see it yesterday. The writing is on the wall. They're gathering their forces. When there's a marriage between excuse me, Larry Fink, David Sachs, and Elon Musk, right? All these money guys coming from these different backgrounds. It's an unholy alliance, and that's where all of this is going. And it'll be sold to the American people that we will retain the economic dominance in the world by setting this standard. So there's going to be a patriotic side to people that are going to agree to this because they'll be like, fuck yeah, America, right? But there's a huge downside. And there's also, so much happened yesterday. The other thing that happened yesterday, I'm going to talk about this on 15, is that the United States Post Office froze shipments from China, right? Packages from China. So how is this going to affect Amazon? How is this going to affect stores like, Harbor Freight, where they get all their tools and cheap shit from China? It's going to have an effect. And if I were you, right, this goes back to what I was talking about yesterday with home improvement. If I were you, if you need any tools, I would stock up. I wouldn't wait around. I'd go out and get them. In fact, I bet you if I walked over to Harbor Freight this morning, they'd be packed. And their shelves are probably going to be, rifled through, right? So if you need some stuff, you should probably get it. And it's not just because of China. And I hate to do things out of fear, right? But when we, the collective we, saw what was coming with COVID, when I saw what was coming with COVID, I knew what to do, right? I went out and I bought a couple of freezers. I bought a freezer like about, 6 weeks before COVID. I got it used. It still works. It's fucking great. And when I tried to get another freezer afterwards, good luck. Couldn't get them. Right? Just could not get them. Exercise equipment, couldn't get it. Right? So I was like looking at, okay, if my gym has to close, what do I do? What do I get? Right? The toilet paper thing, I'd nailed that weeks and weeks before, knew that was coming. On the evening of March 11th, when they canceled the NBA season, I went straight to HEB and I shopped from basically 10:30 at night to midnight when they closed. I rang up about a $350, $400 bill. My cart was full. I got everything I needed. Nobody was there. I was done. Right. And then the next day, the hordes descended upon HEB. So I'm giving you the heads up to get what you need now. Right. Because there may be a time in the not so distant future where you won't be able to get it, or whatever form of transaction will take place, you may not be able to transact and get that thing. And in fact, I'll even go one step further. You may want to get 2 or 3 of certain things. Because if we go into a resale market and you've got, let's say you have 3 chainsaws. Do you really need 3 chainsaws? No. But somebody might need 2 of those chainsaws. And then guess what? The value of those chainsaws goes through the fucking roof. You can sell them, you can barter them, right? So I think we need to start thinking along these lines now, because things are going to get serious. They're going to get serious with the monetary system, and they're going to get serious with the flow of goods. And this is just the course of things. Okay, so that's part of the astrology, and this is kind of a part 2 from yesterday. And again, what happened? We talked about they're going to announce some stuff with the economy, and boom, there it was. 2 major announcements: the sovereign fund, and then this bill going through the Senate about the U.S. stablecoin. The writing is on the wall, people. You need to read it. You need to read it. Okay. Let's see what you guys have to say. Look at Kelly B. She's all over it. I got any BOGO products I could use last night while grocery shopping. You guys are on it, man. Look at Janice. Yes, I have 3 chainsaws. Laura E., I'm finding this all so depressing. Laura, look, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, okay? But I want you to go back and look at the video that I played on Sunday night when Israel created a bot, and that bot turned against them. That was a critical piece of evidence that these things don't always turn out the way that these planners, in all of their hubris and pride, believe they're going to turn out. So we could go through a period like this, and it could be a short season, right? It could be 6 months. It could be a year. It could be a year and a half. And it may all just completely fall apart, right? So I want you to just keep that in mind. My philosophy around all of this social change is that you need to have enough in your possession to buy yourself some time, right? Because unless you're a total prepper and you've got 3 years worth of food and you have a natural water system and and you even have it purified or whatever, and then you've got sort of a subterranean bug out bunker, right? Unless you have that, most people are not going to be able to write it out at that level. So what you have to do is just buy yourself some time. And my buy your time cushion is 6 months. A lot can happen in 6 months. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have to make a panicked decision when there's a economic pole shift. Okay, you don't want to make a panic decision. The worst thing you can do. And if you have things that you need and can use for a while, you will not be forced to make a panic decision. Other people will, right? So you need to just buy. We just need to buy time. And again, I say 6 months is the minimum. A lot can happen. You've seen the last 2 fucking weeks. A lot can happen in 6 months. Don't give up hope. Don't give up faith, because ultimately this thing is going to turn out okay. Trust me. It is going to turn out okay, because the best laid plans, I'm telling you, are not going to work out. They're just not. We're in a different part of the zodiac now. The domination of Pluto and Capricorn, oligarchic top-down systems are over. Right? They're over. And this Pluto in Aquarius is the fucking wild card. It is the joker in the deck. I'm telling you. And just go back and watch that video that I played from Jimmy Dore when Israel's bot went insane and turned against them. That is the model. You just need some cushion and time so you don't make bad decisions. That's all you need, okay? So I don't want to be, Dr. Doom, but we also have to face this freight train that's coming at us. If we don't face it, then we're going to get run over by it. We're going to get flattened by it, right? And ultimately, we want to be able to survive and thrive. And here's the other part of this. Pluto in Aquarius in general, forces people to work together. And if we have to be initiated into a period of disruption in the way that we transact, do business, et cetera, is disrupted, and we have to find other ways of doing things, what are we forced to do? We're forced to work with other people, right? We're forced to figure out, well, I'm in the same boat and you're in the same boat. Can we paddle in the same direction? And these may be people that you may have very little in common with, except that now you find yourself in the same boat. Right? And this is what I began to talk about a long time ago when Pluto first ingressed into Aquarius. And I called it strange bedfellows. Right? You find yourself in a position where it's like, oh my God, I never thought I would be either friends with this person or working this thing out with this person, and vice versa. And that is Aquarius, right? And there are going to be people that you think that are on your team, and that, you know, they're down with the same program you are, you're going to find out that they're not. And people are going to be shocked. They're going to be like, what? I thought that this person was one of us. I thought this person was somebody I could count on because, you know, we share the same values, the same political belief systems, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, you know, they're hoarding shit, and you know, they've got a very different kind of agenda, right? They're not into cooperation. They're not into figuring out solutions together, right? They're into starting their own compounding kingdom. So keep that in mind as well. People you think that are on team fill in the blank, you're going to find out that they're flipping sides, right? So I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but come on, we got to be real about this. All right, let's get into the weather. Okay. Here we go. Look at that. I got it right. It's the little things in life. The little things. Yeah, so here we go. The moon is even closer to Uranus, so I expect more earth-shaking news today around the economy. Like, it's just started. It's like it's kind of like the beginnings of an avalanche in the Swiss Alps. It starts with a rumble and it ends with a snowy tsunami covering a tiny Swiss village on the perch of the lower part of the Alps, or something along those lines, right? Today is also a seismic day in general. You know, today is one of those earthquake watch days because we've got this moon and you know, the moon. Like, let's just talk about the moon for a second. The moon is just fucking weird. Okay, it is weird. It never fucking moves, right? We always see one side of the moon. You know, it feels very artificial. Feels like it was brought here a long time ago for a number of different reasons, right? It does control tides, and probably at a certain point controlled a massive tide related to some sort of, you know, antediluvian flood kind of event, which I think represents when you look at these flood stories, I am convinced that it's when the moon is moved into place. Right, like when Enlil tells Ushnapitnam, "Hey man, there's going to be a deluge here, and I'm just giving you a heads up, so you can build an ark like Noah." Enlil actually liked Utnapishtim because he was clever. He was a clever human, and Enki had trained him well. Right. So how did Enlil summon the flood? I was the moon, right? So when we talk about astrology, this is important now. When we talk about astrology and we talk about the moon is a thing, right? You can see a tiny point of light up there. Well, that's Venus, or another point of light. Well, that's Mars, and another point of light. Well, that's Jupiter. Another point of light. Like, they're there. You can see them, but you have this thing that you see. What, out of 28 days, you're able to see it, what, 3 days out of those 28 days between the new moon and the balsamic cycle and the beginning, probably about 22 days when you get to the crescent, right? And then you get to the final crescent before it goes balsamic. You see this thing. You see it. It's there. It's a force, right? You talk about, you know, one of the things that Joan talks about is trying not to do dental surgery on a full moon. Now, it does happen because people have to get their shit done. When that happens, surgeons of every cloth have noticed, especially in the head, that there seems to be more blood, right? So this is the lunar effect, right, of literally bringing the blood to the top of the head during these full moon cycles. And we know that the moon is connected to tides. The moon is a force. So it is an astronomical, geophysical force that has astrological import. Okay. So when we see this moon in Taurus, keep in mind the moon has an effect and it conjuncts Uranus. And now we're in this kind of mesh point between the astronomical effect of the moon and the astrological effect of the moon. And being that's in an earth sign, what does it affect? It affects this place, the earth. The earth is ruled by Taurus, right? So this is essentially unstable. Over here, we've got Mercury and the sun, of course, in Aquarius, already unstable, ruled by Uranus, right? And when you see Aquarius, you see the waves. Have you ever looked at an earthquake, a big earthquake? It kind of looks like waves, right? It kind of looks like earth waves. You go, oh, look at this. So you watch the asphalt kind of rise and buckle and fall, right? So today is seismic. This is a seismic day. And this is seismic in terms of the economy, right? Seismic in terms of decisions around the economy, also seismic in terms of topography. And it's also a bit shocking, right? There's a shock factor today. So be prepared for anything. Be prepared for anything today. Today, if something weird happens, you should not be shocked because you heard it here. So I have a funny story. I'm going to tell it again over on 15 Minutes of Flame. I'm sitting at this Mexican restaurant last night. And I go to the bar. It's just me. And so I'm in a non-low drinking phase right now, right? Like I've had 3 drinks since the beginning of the year. And those 3 all happened on Saturday night, right? So I go to this Mexican restaurant. I go to the bar. I'm not drinking. And I sit down, and there's Trump and there's Netanyahu. And they're talking. They're doing their press conference shtick. And I'm going to say part of the story for 15, but I'm going to give you another part of the story right now. So there's this couple. They're sitting at the bar. They're 2 seats over from me. And they're very vocal. Right, and the dude is doing a play-by-play on Gaza, the history of Gaza, and the history of Israel and the Crusades, right? And he thinks he knows the answers, and he's not bad. He knows more than most people, but he doesn't have the right story or the complete story. And so he's looking, and I'm listening to this, and I'm saying, should I fucking say something? Right? Because it's hard for me sometimes to keep my mouth shut. But if I'm going to say something, I'm going to make sure that what I say is impactful. Right? So I'm listening to them, and he's talking about this. And he says, "Oh my God, this is a game changer, and they're going to have a one-state solution." And of course, they're Christians too, right? They need that one-state solution because that's the one of the contractual points for the return of Jesus, right? So he says, yeah, but I think we have to also be mindful of Trump. This is what he says. We also have to be mindful of Trump. In as much as he's lauding all this, he says we have to be mindful of Trump. Because he could be a wolf in sheep's clothing. And I heard that, and I pointed at the TV screen, and I said, he's the Antichrist. And I got their attention, right? And she said, no, don't say that. Don't say that. And he, to his credit, took what I said seriously, right? And I thought, well, this is interesting, right? Like this guy can see out of both sides of his eyes. He's just not a blind faither or a complete true believer, right? He has this kind of biblical kind of protocol that he's following, But another protocol is this whole Antichrist story. And by the way, today is theoretically the birthday of the Antichrist. I'll show you. All right. So, yeah, did I indulge in a little shock treatment last night? I did. I confess, I did. But that was my contribution. I didn't really say anything after that, right? I let them go off and have their conversation. Well, they were still there at the bar. So, shock value. The right, if you are the distributor of the shock value, then be prepared for the reverberations. There weren't too many reverberations last night, except for the woman. She did not want Trump to be the Antichrist. The other guy's like, let's kind of line this thing up. Let's see how it looks, right? All right, we got Jupiter direct. Finally, hello. So let's talk about Jupiter in the same context, or in the context that I was talking about earlier with being prepared. Okay, when you get Jupiter Gemini, what are you looking at? You're looking at two separate realities, right? Two separate. So you prepare for one reality, and you prepare to the best of your ability so that you have at least a 6-month cushion. And if that doesn't happen, you're good. You can always use that stuff in case of emergency, cycle it out, whatever, right? The other reality with Jupiter and Gemini is that nothing happens. But if you don't prepare, right, because Jupiter and Gemini is now direct. And so when we see this, these two realities are being activated, these two paths, these two tracks. This is what Trump has been doing. The left-hand side and the right-hand side of God. This is what Trump has been doing. And this is Jupiter and Gemini. Of course, he is a Gemini. Venus has just checked in. 0 Aries. Of course, we're going to go through that Venus retrograde. And what's Venus doing right now? Let's see. We got a quintile with Jupiter. We got a conjunction still with Neptune. Okay, so the Venus-Jupiter quintile. Let's just talk about that. Let's talk about quintiles in general. In astrology, we have the minor aspects, right? And the quintile, the biquintile are part of those minor aspects. Although when you talk about these two aspects, they don't seem very minor. So the biquintile happens at 144 degrees, which is an interesting degree when you think about it, right? Because there's supposed to be 144,000 souls that ascend and are part of the afterlife, right? And the whole rapture story, right? It's 144, that's the number. 144,000, 144 degrees is the biquintile. The quintile is half of that, so that's 72 degrees. Now, so there's angle-wise, the quintile looks a bit more like a sextile. The biquintile looks a bit more like a trine. However, they both operate in similar form, fashion, and function. Now, if you have, the idea here is that with a trine, if you have a trine in your chart, we'll play the past life game. You, in a past life, were able to kind of master something. And you were good at it, and so you're bringing it over into this incarnation. We'll just play that game. That's the trine. The sextile is something that it's kind of like, oh, here, would you like to check this out? Would you like to explore this? Because if you do, there's a good chance you'll be good at it. But you have to do it and activate it in order to be good at it. And so maybe, therefore, the sextile becomes a trine in your next incarnation. Like, I'm just throwing that out there. Now, those are things that theoretically you have done or you have earned the right to do. The quintile and the biquintile are completely different, and we would call those or put them in the category as gifts from God. Like, this is nothing that you had achieved or acquired, right, in some other incarnation. It is simply a divine blessing that is bestowed upon you, right? And then that area of your life where you have a biquintile or quintile, you will always somehow land on your feet. And if you study it and feel into it, right, that's an area where you can theoretically be manifest and be one with the will of God, like the higher will. Like, here you go, check this out. You do this, you've got my blessing. You're good at this, right? So if we look at a biquintile from a transit perspective, something out of the blue, right? Something out of the blue with the biquintile from Venus to Jupiter is there, falls in your lap out of nowhere, right? A lot of times luck is, preparation meeting opportunity, timing, pure timing. And sometimes there's just dumb, beautiful, divine fortune. And today is one of those days when you have a Venus-Jupiter sextile, right? So be on the lookout. Be on the lookout and ask yourself this question. Am I ready to receive an out of the blue blessing from the Creator? Am I ready to receive that? And in this regard, we hope that the blessing lines up as a blessing and not as a blessing that is the result of some kind of a curse that's been resolved, right? Like a blessing that arises out of some form of conflict resolution. This is just a blind blessing. Like, so ask yourself, are you open to it today? And if you are, then your intention cultivates it. Are you ready for a miracle today? Right? In as much as I've painted a very dark picture in some ways, right? We are going to exit the Astro Weather part of today's show with that question. Are you ready for a miracle today? And if you are, raise your hand and say, God, I'm ready for a miracle, and a positive miracle. And that's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to put any conditions on it, right? That's the biquintile. So there you go. All right. Let's get into the star of the day. I think I already have them up here. See, I'm so together. I already have them up here. All right. Here we go. We got the banner. Let's get into our star of the day. So, of course, this portion of the show is brought to you by True Hemp Science, your one-stop shop for all things CBD. You spend $100, you type in 15MINS, and you will get the goodie bag along with your order. The goodie bag is a nice little bonus treat where Chris sends you like the Whitman sampler of some of his products. $150 more, get you free shipping. There's always a 30-day money-back guarantee, and it does help the show because he is the sponsor of the show. Somebody asked me if I wanted to, I think it's Ozark Medicine. Maybe we should have a talk about that. Maybe Ozark Medicine can be a sponsor for 15 Minutes of Flame or something along those lines. We'll figure that out. Anything else about that? No, I think that's it. I think that's it as far as the sponsor part goes. Let's talk about William Burroughs. He's a very odd man. Very odd man. He like Burroughs is otherworldly and weird, right? So when you look at his chart, Aquarius rising, and look at this 12th house. Jupiter, Uranus, Venus, Sun, Mercury, all very 12th house. And Burroughs is an icon. He's an icon. He fits into that 12th house kind of iconic character, right? And what is Burroughs known for? He's known for, well, killing his wife in Mexico, He's also known for his unique style of writing, which has to do with cut up, right? So he learned this technique from a guy by the name of Brian Gysin, whom he had met in Morocco, Tangiers. That's a whole other story. So Gysin was this guy who was into like cutting up words and phrases and then putting them together so that they would have a meaning, an unintended meaning, or a unintended consequence through the syntax. In fact, it's actually a literary technique cut up, right? David Bowie learned this from William Burroughs. And a lot of David Bowie's lyrics were based on the same. He would write certain lines and then he would arrange them randomly and put them together. Sometimes they weren't so random and sometimes they were random. So Burroughs is this kind of interesting figure in terms of literary device, right? He cops it from Brian Gysin. And Burroughs is the consummate outsider. You know, he kind of comes into the beat generation. So he's sort of riding the waves of being a beatnik, but he's older, right? A lot of the beatniks are born in the late 20s and even the early 30s. You know, but Burroughs comes from a different generation. He's got Pluto, in Gemini, right? Just right at the end of Gemini. So he's part of the lost generation. He's kind of at the end of that generation that's part of the Paris Review, right? The Ezra Pounds, the James Joyces. He's kind of at the end of that. So he's like a bridge between sort of that era and then the Kerouac, right? This is where Burroughs comes from. And, he's born in the middle of the country, St. Louis, Missouri, and he must have felt like he was an alien with all this Aquarius going on in his chart, right? Like, so Burroughs is this fascinating character. He's also a bit of a pervert, right? Like at a certain point, he allows himself to move into like queer culture. Literally, by shooting his wife in Mexico, he moves into queer culture, and he stays with queer culture for the rest of his life, right? So even with Aquarius, there's this kind of flip that happens. He says, "Okay, I'll play it straight. I'll get married. I'll take my wife down to Mexico. I'll get drunk, and I'll put a bottle on her head. I think it was a bottle, maybe it was an apple. I got a gun. I'll put a bullet right in her forehead." Right. So this is the genesis in some ways of kind of Burroughs' dive into the counterculture. It starts really with the murder of his wife in Mexico. He also takes drugs in Mexico, and he takes something called yage. And yage, he wrote a series of like notes called the Yage Papers, and he talks about his experience of being on Yage, and I think that that's where he gets Naked Lunch from, right? Where the character Naked Lunch becomes an insect, and I think when he was on Yage, he was sort of inundated with this kind of insectoid consciousness. Right. And then he goes on to write Junkie, Nova Express. What's the other one? It's the book where he comes up with the phrase Steely Dan. All that stuff is like the cut up. It's his cut up kind of style of writing. And it's very Aquarian. It's kind of like chaos magic via words. But there's another side of Burroughs too, which is also very strange, and that he was kind of searching for a system in his life at times where certain things could get sorted out in his mind, right?
So there was a period of time when William Burroughs was into Scientology, and that goes along with the Sag midheaven, and even his like peregrinations in places like Morocco, where he's able to hang out and basically have sex with boys, right? He's there with all these kind of perverts from the West. I mentioned Brian Geisen, Paul Bowles is another. And they go to these restaurants and they have these boy dancers. And it's like, it's a place where they can, get their freak on, right? That's very Sagittarius. But he also has this weird affiliation with Scientology for a while. And then he also had a little strange flirtation with Est, right? So Burroughs is always kind of checking out these systems from the fringe. And when he does them, when he gets involved, they're very new, right? And you can see this with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, right? He's looking for his Jupiter rules Sag is systems. So he's looking for a system, but it's not your ordinary system, right? Neptune is the highest planet in his chart. And it's in Cancer, in the 6th house. And again, from a work perspective, like he's going to be very Neptunian. He'll take drugs, right? Like Neptune's a player, but it's a player in a way that influences how he thinks, right? How he communicates, how he writes. And Burroughs, he drank. Like he was not one of these guys that, was kind of a repentant alcoholic or a repentant addict or user. Junkie is the book, right? He wrote Junkie. It's all about his experiences. It's Neptune, right? He's got this Moon-Saturn conjunction, which is very arid. It's very dry. And when you listen to William Burroughs, you'll hear him talk like this kind of Midwestern dry sort of personality. He's the kind of leathery and never seems to grow old. He looked like he was 70 when he was 40. When he was 70, he looked like he was 90. Right? That's your Moon Saturn. And it's all trending down to that Moon Saturn. But this guy is like completely disembodied. He has no earth in his chart. None. He's completely disembodied. William Burroughs was an alien having a human experience. Now, he may not have said that I'm an alien having a human experience, but I'd say that. He's got this Mars-Pluto conjunction as well. That's a huge appetite with the Mars-Pluto conjunction. And it's what is it doing there? It's trining. And that's a wide conjunction. What is it? 7 degrees. Yeah. So it's trining Chiron. Burroughs is one of these guys that doesn't really judge his experience. He doesn't judge he doesn't judge his experience. He's a weird cat, I'm telling you. But because of that, it allowed him to live a life as an outsider. And I think he was very, very comfortable with being an outsider. Now, this is a weird day to be born. Okay, let me show you a couple other birthdays on this day. This is a very weird day to be born. And when I show you these birthdays, you'll see exactly what I mean. All right, so let's get a gander here. Let's get a gander of some of these strange characters. Well, Hank Aaron, today's Hammer and Hank's birthday. Poor Hank, he took the clot shot. Should never have done it. Bobby Alomar, 2 great baseball players sharing the same birthday. This is what I was talking about with the Antichrist. This is supposedly the Antichrist birthday. Born in Al Barsha, Egypt, 1962. I talked about this on Gaia. I think this might have been the chart that got me fired from Gaia. I was talking about Obama. I was talking about Frank Marshall Davis. I was talking about Malcolm X. I was looking at all these potential fathers in the Obama chart. And I brought up the Antichrist. I think it got me fired from Gaia. Anyway, this is from Gene Dixon. And supposedly, the Antichrist was born on February 5th, 1962. I think tomorrow's Axl Rose's birthday. Pretty close to being the Antichrist. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Some weirdos, some real weirdos. William Burroughs, total weirdo. Right? Is this Robert Byrd's birthday? Is this the Robert Byrd? That polymer's fluid theory. Okay. Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown is a strange cat. Married Whitney Houston. Strange dude. Right? All right. Who else do we have here? There's some others. Who else? H.R. Giger, right? This guy right here. Talk about an alien. He created Alien. Like, this is the creator of the alien monster for the movie Alien. There's a documentary on Giger. I think it's on Netflix or Amazon. I actually kind of recommend it because it's just so fucking weird. And it gives you kind of an insight into how weird this guy is. So if you're in an Aquarian mood and feeling weird, go watch that. You'll get a big dose of weird. So we got Burroughs, we got the Antichrist, we got H.R. Giger or Geiger, however you want to pronounce his name. Who else do we have today? Charlie Young played for the 49ers. Let's see, anybody else? I mean, those three alone are right at the top of the list, right? Anybody else? You got Charlotte Rampling, the actress. Oh, this is interesting. So these two soccer players, Neymar, right, who's a soccer player, famous soccer player, right? Neymar da Silva, like today's his birthday. This is actually a really interesting time twin with Neymar and who's the other guy? Oh, here's another weirdo, Omarosa, right? Omarosa is a total fucking weirdo. And look, she's got Pluto on her ascendant. And she was friends with Trump for a long time. Jennifer Jason Leigh, she's a little different, don't you think? Who's the other soccer player? Hold on. I'm not getting off this show until I find him. All right. Stephen Cannell, the guy that brought you the A-Team. And also, what's his name? James Garner show. What's the other soccer player? Hold on. Alex Harvey of the sensational Alex Harvey band. Where is this guy? Okay, if I go back here, if I go back to the original page, right? Nope, not that page. If I go back here, I'm going to find him. Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay, so this guy, famous soccer player, 1985, right? You got him, and then you have Neymar, same day, 1992. Interesting day for time twin soccer players. All right, that's it. I'm out of here. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe. If you want to buy me a cup of coffee, you're welcome to do that. There's a link there for that. And also, there's a link to join locals. There you go. That's it. I think we're close to a perfect day. Like, we're going to chalk that one notch on the chalkboard. Perfect day. Be back tomorrow for another perfect day. Have a blessed day. Treat each other well. God bless. Bye for now. Take care.